So I'm so excited to be welcoming Dr. Heather Manley, and she is a naturopathic doctor. She is also the author of Human Body Detectives, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And Dr. Heather, as I believe that's what you like to be referred to, is you are a kindred spirit because you are a firm believer, like I am, in terms of really knowing the connection between the body and the mind, and just really knowing your body and how important that is for sustainable health. And a lot of times people tend to neglect that. And what we're going to be talking about specifically, parents, is teenage girls. And so Dr. Heather is just going to share her passion about why she even wants to be joining you here today, and just tell you a little bit about herself first. So
All
welcome.
right. Thank you. I have to say that I'm really, really excited to be here. I think we were just briefly talking about this, like how the teens get lost. They have been lost in this whole, the healthcare field. We talked about little kids, we talked about older kids, but the teens are like this taboo section, which is a little understandable. I mean, it's hard for the parents to navigate them, and the teenagers are like, so emotional. There's so much emotions that are going through their bodies and physically, like so many changes. But I think it's time that we need to bring them to light and to support the parents, to support the kids. So I'm so grateful that you're doing this, and I'm appreciative that I'm a part of it. So
Well, I knew that you would be perfect for this, and I agree that the teens are left out. They're not embarrassed to talk about things.
no, they're not.
There were things that we didn't talk about really when we grew up, and we certainly didn't talk about them in mixed company. But they're not embarrassed to talk about things. So if the parents will just reach out, right?
Right.
And so something that was interesting is that you were going to talk a lot about hormones. So tell us about
Yeah.
girls and their hormones. Oh my goodness.
Well, I think like when I think about, I graduated in 2001 from medical school, and I went to naturopathic school, so it's medical school, so it's what we learned was very similar: the cardiology, pediatrics, pharmacology, all that kind of stuff, and but our treatment modalities really expand beyond the pharmaceuticals. Like we learn a lot about, spend a couple of years in nutrition and physical medicine and botanical medicine and hydrotherapy and homeopathy, all these great things.
Love it.
But like kind of, and then we really are kind of drilled in with some of the philosophies of naturopathic medicine, which is, that the healing power of nature, prevention, doctor as educator, like some of those things are, we're kind of really drilled into us. Mm-hmm. But when you're in school, you're thinking, I got to pass, like I got to work on that cardiology
yes.
test. So but when I got out of school, I started really seeing patients that, I like more so on my own, that ended up being a lot of pediatrics, like kids. And I think it's because I had children and I live in a small town, and there wasn't another naturopathic doctor in town that wanted to see kids. So I kind of just fell into me, and it was easy because I was right there with the parents. But what I realized pretty soon on is like, the more I did the education part and really taught people like how their bodies worked, and the physiology, and how like one organ is working independently, but then all the other organs are helping that organ or the system, and how it's all integrated but separate, and then how that you can nourish it through whether it's hydrating or sleep or movement or breath work, all that lifestyle stuff. Mm-hmm. They were like, wow, like I understand why my body needs that. So there was this huge awareness piece, and then they were way more compliant because it made sense to them. So, I just like it was kind of forefront in school, but not in my mind, a big priority. But then when I started seeing the patients, I was like, wow, like I really need to work on this, because once we understand how our physiology works, we really begin to have this more trust in our bodies that it can do what it's designed to do. And right there is preventative healing. So, and then when I like step back a little bit further and I start to think like, why we need to be teaching this to kids. If we can instill that thought into like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, the sooner we do it, then it just becomes innate for them. And so like they just want to feel good, they want to play hard, like they want to do all those things. And then, but they understand their muscles need certain things, or their heart needs certain things, so they can kick that soccer ball and get a goal, or whatever their desire is to read, read books that are like beyond their level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
Whatever their motivation is,
yes.
then they're going to make better choices, and they want to make better choices, and that in itself is just going to lead to a healthier generation. And then just is going to decrease the chronic disease that we're plagued with in this country.
So what are you seeing? What are you seeing that people are defaulting to though now? What are you seeing that people do? Well, I'll just leave it at that because I have my own personal opinion on how, because I'm also a health coach too, and so I see what people want that are not healthy. So what do you see as the default that probably generally people have done before they come and seek you out for help?
Well, I think the disconnect is the disconnect between your gut. I think we come into this world and we have this innate knowing of what's going to be best for our bodies. And we then, as we grow up and parents of this generation, of our generation, I don't know, but I grew up, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and
my mom was
so, but now like these parents, everyone's working, and, there's less time, and there's like more ads on the TV that say, if you have this, then we have this cure, take this medicine. So, and then that's just the pharmaceuticals, doing their thing to sell. Then you have the food media that's doing their thing, whether it's fast food. And it's convenience. It makes sense. If you're so busy, then it's harder to really listen to what you need. And I think like that block comes up right away, and then it doesn't seem easy or plausible to even think about cooking dinner. So I think like when patients come into me now, they're like, I want to eat better. I want to optimize my health, but I'm not sure how to do it. And so that's when, health coaches are so great. Like me introducing well, these are some of the things that we can work on, and these are some of the foods we can work on. And these are like, I'm lazy in the kitchen, but it doesn't require so much in the kitchen to really make a good meal.
It really does.
Like last night we made risotto, which maybe not be like the healthiest, but we used pretty good ingredients. But we packed it with vegetables, and it took less than 30 minutes.
And there's so tools now that with the Instapot, and we use our steamer, like our steamer basket, to do veggies. And there's just, I know that my 2-year-old granddaughter, she loves vegetables that are a bit like kind of grilled or baked in the oven.
Yeah, roasting. Roasting is huge.
And just put it in the oven, and she likes it. And so it doesn't have to be hard. Yeah. No,
it doesn't have to be hard. And I definitely have some few tricks up my sleeve that I share with my patients. And then I do work with a health coach nutritionist. So if somebody wants something more tailored, that's easy. Then, we can, pass that on. And then, so there's that part of it, but then also the part of like the mindset and like really slowing down and like taking the walk after dinner or moving your body in some way and making sure that you're keeping hydrated. And if you don't like water, then let's figure out other ways. So really kind of helping people get to the place where they already knew, but had lost. So, that's what I really, really like to do. But, but I think when patients come in, they're so used to the quick fix, they just want a pill.
That's
But I
right.
think more and more people are realizing that these quick fixes are actually giving them a lot of other problems.
I do hope
So,
you're right. I do.
yeah, well,
I hope we're getting the message out there.
I'm seeing that right now. Like, we're going to talk about girls and hormones, but and there's a few reasons why I'm putting this out into the world more. But what I've been seeing lately is I have a lot of girls in their late teens and early 20s who are coming to me and they're on pharmaceutical drugs that
Yes.
were given
Yes.
to them like within the first year of them getting their period, to help with whether it's cramping or acne,
Acne.
whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But I can't, look at a family and discount their decision at all. But at the same time, it makes me a little bit sad to think like, well, there's a reason why we have some acne or cramping, but there's ways that we can work with that to help the girl out. So there's that part of it. Like there should be other options on the table. And the other part of that is that a lot of these pharmaceuticals have a myriad of side effects. And so when I'm taking these girls
Yeah,
off these
absolutely.
pharmaceuticals, it's not an overnight thing.
No. No.
So those two things made me like go back to like what we talked about a little bit earlier is that if we can empower these girls at a young age to understand how their physiology works and how to nourish it, and there's lots of superpowers in their hormones, then they're gonna know that pharmaceuticals are on the table, but there's other things on the table too, and that is really my goal.
Oh, absolutely. So let's just, because people may not know or have had the time or even the inclination to inform themselves. That's really why we're here together. And some people may really not know. If we can just kind of go down to that basic level, and what is a hormone? What are the hormones? What is it, and what do the different hormones do?
Well, I mean, like when we think about a girl's menstrual, well, hormones, they communicate. Like they're communicators in the body. They're like, the brain is telling an organ that they need to do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And usually that is, like in the menstrual cycle, it revolves around like a feedback loop is what they call it, what the biology calls it. Is so like if there's low hormones, that's going to send a message to like a hormone's going to be sent to the brain to say, hey, we need more estrogen, we need progesterone. Then that message gets sent down to the ovary, and then that helps like teach get the body into a flow of these hormones that nudge the body to go into action, to either make the hormone to do what that hormone needs to do in the body.
Okay.
So like what there's so much to learn about a girl's menstrual cycle, because it's typically about a 28-day cycle, and there's different phases that are involved with that. So like I've broken down the first phase, the follicular phase, with your period. So day one is your period, and then you finish your period, and then you go into the second part of your follicular phase, and then you ovulate, you have ovulation, and then you have your luteal phase. And so in each different phase, there's hormones that are strong, like they're making a bigger presence. And then there's a time when our hormones are really low. And so understanding that fluctuation during that 28-day cycle can be really powerful to know how to bring out the best in that hormone.
Yes, yes. And I want to hear more about that, because I do know that people tend to get what would be the PMS symptoms and cravings and headaches and things like that happen during certain times of those three phases that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So if you have that awareness, one, of when your cycle is, tracking it, and we'll talk about that, I know you want to, is then you can sort of kind of counteract, right? Counteract or head them off at the pass a little bit, or?
Yeah, like I think like hormones in our menstrual cycles really kind of get a bad rap. Like everybody kind of focuses on the negative parts of it.
Right.
But
Suppressing.
I think, what's that?
Suppressing, really.
Yeah.
Suppressing the natural balance.
Well, yeah, but even like, yes, for sure, but I'm also think like when people are always like, oh, I'm gonna get my period, or oh, I feel tired, or so there's more focused on that versus some of the highlights that those hormones can give to you during the cycle, and going back to understanding like let's, for example, well, let me give a bigger example. So when a girl starts their period, let's say at like age 12, it can take up to 3 years for that cycle to mature. So in order for the brain and for the ovaries to be able to communicate the way that it needs to communicate to balance out the hormones. So what typically happens when a girl first gets her period, there's a lot of estrogen in the body. And we need the estrogen because the estrogen is like a growth hormone. And so like it helps us develop like our breasts and, the pubic hair. So we have more of that. But when we get our period and the next phase is the ovulation phase, and we need to ovulate to make progesterone for the next phase. But a lot of times we have way too much estrogen to really kick in the ovulation to make the progesterone. So we have so much estrogen, but not much progesterone. And it takes sometimes 3 years to get it to a balance where, the hormones are going to work and shine for us. So, and that, kind of a little side note, hopefully this won't deter, but like as we get older, in our 20s and 30s, or even in our teens after, we've had our periods for a few years, there's a lot of things that can shift that balance too on the outside, stress and like what you're eating, and if you're over exercising or under exercising, or if you had finals last month, that could mess up your cycle for the following month.
Right.
So there's, that aspect. But the problem is that when these girls really first get their period, they have so much estrogen, which builds, and that's what's been building in your uterine lining. And so, when that sheds and we have our period, it's a big period because there's no progesterone to balance it. So that's so that's what, going back, like when these girls go into the doctor say, oh, my period's so heavy, and so they try to use a drug or whatever they're using, and it kind of shuts off that communication between the brain and the ovaries. But the brain and the ovaries are trying to figure out that balance and to that communication to help the progesterone to be made. And so if you sever that too early, it never gets a chance. And that's why when I'm taking girls off some of these pharmaceuticals, it takes so long, because it's now we have to go through that whole cycle of the brain and the ovaries reconnecting and rethinking and figuring out how to make that happen. But sorry.
So when a girl's on the birth control pill and they decided this might not be the best thing for me, and they want to get off, how long does it take that to get out of their system to where you start seeing this natural balancing again?
Well, again, it's always going to depend on each
right
our teenager. I did take one girl off, and it went pretty smoothly. But she wanted to. I think she wanted to do like 2 more packs of pills, and so we started right when she saw me. So I knew we had 60 days, and we worked a lot on her liver. We worked a lot on the birth control pill depletes a lot of vitamins in the body, and it kind of disrupts the blood sugar. So like we really, and liver, like when there's synthetic hormones in the body, the liver's working extra hard to get those out. So we did a lot of liver work. We really got her body nourished through eating, changing her diet, and eating like really a nutrient-rich diet, and lots of fiber, because people aren't eating enough fiber. So we really got that in, keeping her hydrated. And so when she finished her pill, she just didn't have any side effects. But typically you would see whatever they went on the pill for, if it was for a reason, all that stuff starts to flare up. but we didn't see anything because we got her body.
I want to go deeper there, because I want to make sure that the parents have heard what you were saying. So if they have a daughter who's on the birth control pill for something, to me is let's just say optional. I want my skin to clear up, or my period's a little heavier than I want.
Let's just step back, because I don't know the percentage offhand, but it's way higher than 50% of the reasons teenage girls go on the birth control pills. It's not for reproduction.
Yes.
It's more for some of these unpleasant side effects.
Yes.
Because we're trying to get that balance.
And the parents are just, this is my personal opinion, but they're just like, okay. Yeah. My young daughter, she's just going to be on this. But I would like for you to expand on this, if you will, Heather. It's just you talked about the effects of birth control on the liver and depleting nutrients in the body. Can you talk a little bit more on that? So parents, that really drives home to parents what that could be doing to their daughter to be on the pill when it's like
I think there's a few things to remember. There's another girl that was put on that I've worked with who went on the birth control pill for I can't think of, I think it was heavy periods. I can't fully remember, but she just didn't really, like, I talked to her mom too, and I was like, listen, like, she never got a chance. Her brain and ovaries never got a chance to figure it out. It's like she went straight from having a period for 1 year and then put into menopause. Is basically what happens. And the mother was like, what? So that's like one thing that needs to be discussed. And then, but the birth control pill depletes B vitamins, depletes zinc, and zinc is really important for skin health. So, and your immunity. So, and the B vitamins are really great for to help with relieving stress. And so the body doesn't have enough reserve, because if the pharmaceuticals are grabbing them and needing them to be processed and removed out of the body. So if there's a girl who wants to be on the birth control pill, I'm like, yeah. I mean, if it's for good reasons, like you don't want to get pregnant, which
right.
We don't have that many options out there. So, but let's make sure that we do it smartly. Like we got to get you on a really good multivitamin. We have to make sure that you're eating a lot of fiber, that you don't get constipated, because we want to be able to flush everything out, keep yourself hydrated, and we got to get you nourished. Like, we got to make sure that you're eating some, good, colorful, whole foods.
So I think that I would be pretty safe in saying is that because of what you have chosen as I would call it your professional calling, you are in the minority in terms of a physician who would tell a young lady all of those different things. Because I'm thinking the traditional path is to write the script and the girl leaves the door, and there's no mention of all those supplementary things that need to be done to keep her healthy.
Yeah, and that's I think we kind of, I didn't talk about this at the beginning, but you did ask me this, but I forgot about that. It's just like, I think things are really changing right now, because I think, like, not only just people in general, but parents are questioning, which is what we need to be doing. We need to be asking our doctors questions, like, is there an alternative? What are the side effects? Like, what can I do? Like, not just being fully trusting the doctor, because they, and the doctor needs to be disclosing all that information as well, but the patients also needs to do their homework. And if you're going on any drug or getting any food,
right,
you need to look at the leaflet that's inside. I mean, I don't really take any drugs, but I
don't either. That's why.
Yeah. But I do tell patients to do that, and like, it's the same thing when you go to the grocery store. Like, you look at your food, you look at, like, what are they, not so much like the the serving size
Right.
salt and all that kind of stuff. But like, what's in there? Like,
The
what
fine
is in
print.
the food? The
Yes,
fine print, like what's in there. You need to do the same thing with the drugs, because there's
absolutely.
so, and I think that's a huge take home for all the parents who are listening right now, is like, don't just think you need to do that with food. You need to do that with drugs as well.
And
And even supplements, because
yeah,
you can buy, I have so many patients who come to me and they buy their supplements from the big box stores and they bring them in, and I'm like, okay, you're taking vitamin C, but what are all these other things that
there's
are in
lots of
here?
sugar in it.
Yeah, so like,
Yeah,
so it's just, it's there's no shame involved. It's just
right.
an awareness, and it's just, teaching, like, that we do need to be accountable ourselves too.
Absolutely. Nobody knows your own body like you.
Oh yeah, I
And,
talk about that with my patients too. It's like,
wow.
listen, you know how you work more than I do. So.
And as a mom, nobody knows your kid like you do.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the same. It's the same principle, and you'll be happy to know that actually one of our other guests in our summit she is a pharmacist, but she's transitioning to health coaching,
Oh,
and her
wow.
passion
Oh,
is to really educate people about the efficacy and also the side effects and detriments of prescription drugs if you don't know what you're taking, why you're taking it, how to take it, all of that. So there's a whole video with her, and so
I can't wait to listen to that
really
one.
It really dovetails, and she has some really hair-raising stories that she's told about young people that are on multiple drugs, and as you know, there's they may take one drug for one thing, and we actually, she and I are mentoring a young woman, and she was on some I guess you call them psychotropic drugs, or okay, and so she was on, but she got on the pill, and it was just for what you said, because her periods, somebody said, oh, how are your periods? She said, well, they're kind of heavy, so she got on those, but the doctor didn't say, hey, you know what, you taking this pill has an adverse effect on this main issue that we're dealing with, say anxiety, depression, whatever. And so or it made the pill like completely ineffective or something. So it was just this contraindication.
Cross reactions.
Yeah, but people don't. You get that little piece of paper, or you're in a hurry when you go to the pharmacist, and it's like stapled together with your receipt. And I think people don't read it like they should. So I mean, I'm so glad to hear you bringing that up. As a doctor, that, but you're coming at a point where really you're an educator too. You're an educator also, and that's so important. Again, like you said, to talk to the doctor, because I'm sure you don't mind people coming in with lots of questions.
No, I mean, I learn a lot too, and if I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not, I usually have to look up a lot of the pharmaceuticals that people are on if they come to me on them, because there's so many out there.
Oh.
And and if they're on a few, then we kind of have to work on that, and then that might not be the goal, is to take somebody off, but to just like what we were talking about, if you're on the birth control pill, what can we do to make sure that your body's still being nourished? So,
that's right. It's not, like you said, it's not depleting something else out even more so or something.
Yeah.
So with the teenage girls, is there what could, and it's probably going to be coming from the mom, how could a mom approach her daughter to ask questions from a point of curiosity to about the daughter and her body and what's going on, and to also get the daughter used to really, like you talked about, like understanding empowerment behind a cycle. What can a parent kind of do there to help with that?
Well, I mean, of course, the sooner you start talking about things, the better. And I always find, like, I mean, when I talk to patients and I think about my own children, I have an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old, but, the more that we talked at the dinner table, and when Dad was involved, I mean, I have two girls, so it's a little bit different, but like the more that we talked about at the table, it was a comfortable conversation. And so if something did come up, they felt it was a safe environment. but that's probably when they're like 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 11. But then you get into like when it starts to get real.
Yeah.
That's when you have to like make sure. This is why it's so hard to be a parent. You have to be so creative. Like when they're little, it's like creative with the picky eaters.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and then when they get older, it's like
something else. Yeah.
yeah, just like I have a bunch of ideas for that too. But then as they get older, it's like, okay, when should I ask? When is appropriate? Like when are they going to be relaxed enough to ask me? Like I always find the car is the best place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be eye contact.
It's a captive audience. Yeah, if you can get them off their phone in the car. Yes. Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't really have to grow. I didn't deal with that so much.
We didn't deal with that much either. Fortunately, my daughter's a little older. Yeah.
But now it is. It's but like there's, I think probably one of the best things to do, and if this just came to me, is like get because of their iPhone, like get them on some kind of period tracker. Like there's Clue, there's iPeriod, like that where they can, get into, like into the habit of charting. Even if they don't have their period yet, at least it's on their phone. They're getting, like they're seeing it. Some of these have like little discussion areas. I don't know. A parent would have to make sure that it aligns with them. But there's just getting into the idea that these things are shifting. That I have this cycle, and I think just I don't know. I always bombard my kids with articles and stuff. I'm like, oh, you should do this, or like on Instagram, like. Like I'll tag, or if it's something that might embarrass them, I'll screenshot it and send it to them and say, hey, this is your brain on hormones, like this is what's happening. So it's okay if you're tired at this time or energetic or you're craving something, like this is what's happened. Like this is where you are. So, like I think like doing the visuals and like doing the period tracker, I think those would be like good things to
absolutely, especially because they're always on their phone, and just say, hey, do you have that app that's called so and so? And they're like, oh no, and they're like, oh no, what is that? Oh, it's for just tracking your period. And like, oh no, mom, but I have this already. Wow, that would be great, right? Or
I know, and it might be that way because these girls are talking to their girlfriends first, and someone's got to be the first.
That's right. And if they don't, that would show. That could open up a conversation, obviously, between mom and the daughter, but also show the daughter that the mom values her in a different kind of a way. Like a young mom. We're not talking about academics or anything. We're just talking about, that we're women and we're just talking about our bodies.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think like if your girl has a best friend and you're friends with that mom, like maybe going out for dinner and again, as parents we have to be sneaky. I guess you could call it being manipulative to a way, but like you and the other mom could be like, yeah, let's try to broach this subject. So
right.
And then maybe you go to the grocery store afterwards and you buy feminine products together. So it's like everybody feels safe and comfortable and a little giggly.
Right.
I think that's the most important part is that the kids feel safe and they feel that they can ask questions and that it's just a new phase.
Do you notice that do your teen clients come in with the mom, or do some of them choose to come by themselves, or how is it kind of typically in your practice when you're seeing a teenage girl?
Well, that's always tricky. So I do encourage me doing a little bit of both, and maybe starting off with the mom in the room, and then but the mom knows beforehand, like let's have you in the room at the beginning, just so we all are on the same page and there's communication and we understand what we're talking about and where we're going. But then let's have you bow out.
Let's go. Yes. Yeah. I do that sometimes in my coaching sessions. If I felt like I need to bring a mom in, I'm like, I'm going to put you on pause for a while and I'm just going to talk to your son or daughter and then I'll bring you in if we need to do that. So and then say goodbye. So
I think that, can bring up some good things with the teenager can feel like they can share some things to me.
You have to be that safe space. And you are talking about something that is so important to them, you know, their appearance and their bodies and their sexuality and all that. I mean, it's just, everything's just raging or getting ready to rage even more. And so for them to be able to talk to you about that must feel really good for them, and for you to be able to share just all the information and encouragement that you can.
Yeah, it empowers them. I mean, that's part of it all too. It's just, you know, empowering with knowledge, and how that knowledge can bring some really great preventative health, and better choices in whatever they decide, and an understanding of what's going on. So, like I typically, I talk about this in my course too, but like after we have our period, like estrogen starts to rise. And when estrogen rises, I mean, estrogen has a lot of superpowers, but one of the big things that it has is it gives us all this confidence and gives us this strength. Mm-hmm. So, when a girl starts to be like, wow, maybe I should chart so I know where I'm at, because when I have all this confidence and when I have all this, like, I feel really strong, that's a good time to, if you have a presentation you have to give at school, schedule it then. Or if you can, of course, right. You can always do that. But if you need to have that conversation with your mom and dad, the awkward one, that is a perfect time to do it, right after your period, before, around the time you ovulate. Or if you have a boyfriend that you need to, break up with, or you have a girlfriend who you're having a hard time with, like, that is a really good time to use the estrogen that's in your body. So,
I've never heard this before. It's fascinating to know that there's the different phases and and like you said, just the power that each one. So it's coming at it totally from a positive perspective, as you kind of, instead of like a negative, like, oh, I'm going to have my period and this and that. That's a complete reframe. I think that's going to be really helpful for parents to hear and to share, with their teenagers. So let's circle back. You mentioned a course that you have. Can you tell me the name of it and tell us about that?
Right. So it's called Know Your Body, period. And it's for preteens and teenagers. I mean, I think my 22-year-old and her friend were like, we want to take that course. And there's nothing about sex in there. It's all about the physiology of the body and some anatomy. And but then I tie in a lot of that. So I talk about the science of what's happening in each phase. And then I break it. Then I talk about the superpowers that are in that phase. So, like, what hormone is shining, not just estrogen and progesterone, sometimes testosterone kicks in. And like what those hormones are really, what are the benefits from them that we get? And if it's out of balance, then what are some of the side effects we might get from that? But then we go into nourishing your superpowers, and that talks about like how to nourish yourself during that phase. So I have lots of like some recipes, and I talk about like crystals and essential oils, like just some fun stuff. And then I tie in how our menstrual cycle is cyclic, and we have 4 phases, and we have 4 seasons, and there's 4 moon phases. So kind of tapping into that kind of aspect of it, and how we are connected to the earth, and if we are aware of that, it's kind of, it makes us feel like we belong.
Right.
It's really great. And then, also we talk about a little bit of spirituality and your moods and your emotions, just like what is happening during that phase and how to take care of that and how to, bring out the positive in that. So, like, for example, and then I talk about botanical medicine, like some herbs. So like say when you have your period, we're losing blood, we're losing some iron in the blood. So maybe you could brew yourself some nettles tea, which can be really helpful for blood building. And so, and that kind of takes us back into that home medicine, like that healing touch, like, your take, it's not really this, it is self-care, but it's kind of like in the olden days when you saw your doctor, they always had their hands on you. You know, they're licking your throat. There was like there's like putting the cold cloth on your forehead, which I could probably use right now. It's so hot in my room, but um, you know, so you're taking care of yourself. You're going, you know that maybe you're losing some iron in your blood, your menses, and then so you brew yourself, steep it maybe, or you have a tea bag, and you go, you sit on your couch, you sip your tea, you read your favorite book. Like those are the kind of things that I want the girls to feel like it's okay to do, and that they need to do that, and that's what. So that's a lot of what I talk about in the phases too, like which each phase where it's okay to be feeling the way you're feeling.
I love that. So how is your course? How is it delivered? I mean, is it online? Is it a booklet? I mean, what's the format in it of it?
So it's all online.
Okay.
I put it on a platform, e-learning platform called Thinkific. And so,
and I'll have the link. I'll have the link to.
Oh yeah. Okay. Good.
About that for them. Yes.
So they can check that out.
Yes.
And so I can't remember how many lessons, but there's so much information. So
it sounds
yeah. So like I break it up, like there's, the table of contents, and then, you got to start somewhere, and then just your basic everyday stuff. I mean, there's a lot of information in both of those things. And then we go into the phases. So, like you have your menstrual cycle, hunker down, so I talk about like I was saying, like the science, the physiology, then we talk about the superpowers, and then nourishing the superpowers. So I do that with each phase, and then there's a glossary and references and a conclusion. And each lesson has a video from me and lots of copy, some handouts. There's a discussion panel, so if kids want to go in there and ask questions either for me or they have questions for their peers, they can do that. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Wow! This is a new program that you've just launched.
Yeah, I did something a lot smaller, like a few years ago, and I was kind of doing well and writing, and I just was like, there's so much more to add, like talking about the moon and the seasons and going more in depth with nourishment. And so that's why in the last year, I've just, put together this bigger program. And I mean, ideally, you find your best friend and you take it together.
Yeah.
A bunch of 11-year-olds who are doing it with their mom, and that's another good thing. So
absolutely,
they can do it together.
I'd love to see parents do that even with their older teens.
Yeah, and 10-11 is a good time.
If the moms are still having their cycle, there's not going to be a lot of difference. Maybe a little less of one thing than during those phases, but still kind of the basic, right? The basic one.
Yeah, no, it's totally, like if you want to try to
or something, then it's still we're all still doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So
and so that's fun too. You can share, like, where are you in your cycle, mom? Like, so and it's if you're there, maybe we should have that smoothie, and I don't know, it's just
I love that.
It's more of a connection, that can be made, which can be very powerful.
And the course is just in the privacy of your own home, and it's convenient whenever you want to do it.
Yep.
I love it. Yeah. So again, parents, I'm going to make sure that I have the link so you can be sure and locate that amazing sounding course. I wish I would have had something like that with my.
I know, me too.
Yeah. Wow. We just somehow we made it through, didn't we, without knowing all of that? But it's nice to have that empowerment now that I know, and it does give you that confidence.
Well, that's what we want. We want empowered, strong, resilient girls, and I think the one of the first things we need to do is show them their physiology, teach them their physiology.
Right.
There's so much in our physiology and our hormones that give us all that strength and resiliency.
So I have a question that you're probably going to know, and it's one of those crazy things that happens. That how is it that when you live with someone, like I had 3 roommates in college, and all of a sudden your cycles just seem to be the same? How does that happen?
I think that's the nature. It's like we're cyclic. Like we want to be connected to each other. We want to, I mean, it doesn't always happen, but it definitely happens. Like girls have been
so many times.
I know it's and that's
roommates. And
That's just to me, that's another superpower that connects us to the earth and the moon and the seasons, and also connects us with our, fellow girlfriends.
right.
And I think
Right.
that's, we really need to put awareness there and feel connected there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And honoring that, really, how our body
Yes.
is beautifully made.
Yeah. I love I don't know if you've read the book, The Red Tent, but that book talks a lot about.
And
But
I'm going to write that down. The Red Tent.
The Red Tent. I'm trying to think of the author. I think it's Anita. But I had my girls read it a few years ago, and it's hands down like one of their favorite books. And
what age group do you think it would start?
They probably maybe 15, probably. I don't know. It's again depends on the family and like your values and morals and like how you want to approach that. Maybe the mom or the dad reads it first and then decides. But it can be a really great book talking about, just the community and the connection that women have through their menstrual cycles.
Right. Interesting. So you have something to empower the parents. You have a free gift for them. Do you want to tell us about that? It's your 5.
Can you remind me the title of it?
5 tips. Yeah, I want it. 5 tips for a happy, healthy teen. 5 tips
yes,
for
okay.
a healthy teen. Can you tell us about
I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember the title that we decided to give it. But so it's just like some good 5 tips that I think parents can do to connect with their children and have the kids connect. So, I think we're talking like, I think I give some ideas on how to get your kids, maybe off their phone, maybe into nature. So giving some ideas that make sense that you could do it, like maybe you haven't thought about. And, it's very much the same analogy of like how to get your picky eater to choose food. So just some really good creative ideas to get your kid to be more connected to themselves and socially and to the family, because it is kind of a interesting time. So there's some good ideas on there
for mental health as well.
There's mental. Well, that's all connected, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And those things, you can't separate that. The mental.
No, you can't.
Especially now, I think people are starting to realize how important that is.
Yeah. And that's what's so great. There's such a good movement right now
to take care of yourself. So you have we want the parents to take action now. Mm-hmm. And so you are going to call them to action about doing something actually for their daughters
but if they're sorry, I'm interrupting you. Because we talked about, like, I think we talked about like what this call to action should be or could be. And I think, journaling and charting. So we talked about getting an app for their phone, like an iPeriod or Clue. There's so many great ones. Just Google top 10 period apps. And find out which one. There's one, oh gosh, there's one that's designed for teenagers. So maybe if I remember that, I'll send that.
Yeah, and I have a client that just told me about hers the other day, so I can ask her, and I can even put that in the link too. So
there's one for teenagers, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but so that would be a good thing to get and to start journaling. Like we didn't talk so much about charting in the menstrual cycle, but when you're in your follicular phase, estrogen likes to be really cold in the body, so we typically see our body temperature a little bit lower than when we have more progesterone in our body. So that's kind of a fun thing to do, like to chart and, go out and get some thermometers for you and your daughter. Keep it by your bed, take your temperature right when you wake up. You can write it down. And this, even if they're not menstruating, they might start seeing changes in their temperature. And that could be a nice clue that maybe their period's on their way. So, so journaling is going to be really a good thing to do, like, again, if they haven't started, taking their temperature, writing down some puberty changes, and then if they are menstruating, then there's a lot more to chart, your moods and, when you get your period and how long it is and, the color of your blood, that can maybe change a little bit, and then your temperature.
Is there actually a template, some kind of a template or chart or something to fill in that you suggest, or?
I think I actually have one in my very first curriculum, which reminds me that maybe I should add it to my new one on, excuse me, on Thinkific. But you can, I'll try to find that too and send it over to you.
Yeah, that would be fun to have something that they can actually, because I know, like with my clients, I have a food and mood journal.
Yeah, it's like that.
So,
I have one of those.
What are you eating and how are you feeling when you're eating?
Food, mood, poop.
Yeah. And that's a very revealing thing to do.
Yeah, and it's
even
good
if
thing
you're just tired or you're happy or angry or frustrated, you're anxious or whatever, and then you take action upon that, or you react based on emotion, and you can look at it, and boy, there's nothing like seeing something right in your face.
Awareness is
that you've written down, not someone else, that you've written down. It's like, wow, I didn't know that every time that I remember just a quick story is that my mom used to joke about that every time I'd have like a boyfriend problem or something like that, I'd be downstairs baking. And I always like bake, I knew something was going on with your boyfriend.
That's funny.
You'd be down there baking. So
you start to see patterns, like if there's, like I was saying, like you have, you have finals in May, and then maybe your period the next month is either longer or shorter or heavier. And then you can be like, oh, well, last month, I had all the stress. And so that kind of shut down that brain overage communication and shifted things.
Absolutely.
So like, well, what could I do during final week to take care of my body so that my period is better? So, that's.
Absolutely. So if someone wanted to seek you out as their healthcare provider, how does that work? How do they do that?
I have a website, drheathernd.com. They can check me out there.
Okay.
They can email me, and I think you can put that in the show notes.
Yes.
And then I have Human Body Detectives if they're interested in learning more about some of my kids and teen curriculum. Either on humanbodydetectives.com or on Thinkific. They can just Google Human Body Detectives.
You have a great website. You have so much.
Thank you.
It is just packed full of information. I'm just an information junkie, and I went on. I was like, oh my gosh, it's deep and wide. I love it. So yeah. So I think people really enjoy it. And they'll be able to find you and find out information about.
Yeah, and I'm always happy to answer questions. So if people want to shoot me a question.
So can you actually, I don't know if treat's the right word medically, but can you actually work with people who do not live in your same geographic location?
Well, it gets a little bit tricky. So, I be open to call me and we can, figure something out,
Okay.
So,
just in case there's nobody around them that does what you do.
Yeah. And so we just have to get a little bit, we just have to we have to just talk it out. And,
right. Even just
with the expectation.
Direct them to someone else. Like, oh, this
that we can do that, or, I can.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I understand that.
Because you offer something very unique. And again, we are kindred spirits, and then I love all kinds of alternative and all kinds of information that goes along with that in order to really take care of our bodies and take charge of our bodies. And when we have someone like you as a resource that's in alignment with that, wow, that makes us feel great. And it helps us to be healthier. So,
well, that's what we want. At least that's what I want.
Absolutely.
And I think most people want, even the kids that I see,
they do.
They want to feel good. So if we can really get it instilled in them at a young age, then it's just going to be super powerful.
Well, this has been fascinating because like I said, I wish I would have known all this when I was a teenager and then when I was the mom of a teenager. But now this is wonderful that I can share with the parents here, but also share with the parents of my clients too. And so they can again, just look at what's important in terms of taking care of their body and being informed and stepping back. They really have to
Yeah.
step back and take the time
Yeah.
to do that and want to do that and understand why they're doing it. And that's really what you're
Yeah.
doing, is you're teaching them all that. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate that this has been extremely informative. And I know that the parents, there's been a lot of kind of aha moments, and they're going to be able to get in touch with you in many different ways. I'll make sure that they have that and they can take advantage of the things that you're offering.
Good.
So I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much too for
Absolutely.
everything, doing this and having me.
Oh, sure. You're so welcome.